Hello and welcome back to the Beyond the Coach podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kelsey Nanini,
And I'm Chris Sweet.
and we're gonna do a little little quickie.
A quickie.
Because Chris is traveling tomorrow, and we had some technical difficulties last week, and that's the vibe. We're gonna get chit chatty. We're just gonna get on into it.
Let's do it.
So something that has been coming up for Chris and I a lot in coaching, because we do coach a lot of coaches, is just coaches that are not necessarily doing the same things they're holding their clients to. And that can pertain to a whole slew of different things. But one thing that we often see it come up with is not having I don't want to use backbone, but for lack of a better term, backbone to keep your clients at maintenance for the long time that they need to, essentially for the time period that they need in order to give their body a reset. And I think that is oftentimes a reflection of the coach not doing it themselves and like kind of bouncing from cut to cut.
Yeah,
So
I can use my client Pete as the perfect example in this case. I actually literally just had a call with him this morning. And a big discussion that him and I have had is like what trends are popping up in his business as far as retention goes, re-signs, because he has a lot of clients that go back to work with him after a period of time. And it's not because they've like maintained their progress. It's because they've like lost progress and they're like, oh, I'm going to go back to Pete and hire him and, get that fix again. And then they leave the program again. It's kind of created this like oscillation to where I'm like, Pete, it's so great that people want to come back and work with you because your results obviously like prove themselves. But how nice would it be to actually help your clients past just the initial fat loss that they see? Because he does really great transformative coaching in that sense, but really hasn't mastered the maintenance side as far as coaching clients through that. He has a very hard time selling it. And so something I called him out on was like, do you feel that you struggle selling it because you have not done it yourself consistently? And then we had a discussion about his health and fitness and how he does great come the summertime, leans out, like all the things. But what comes after that is not obviously sustainable. He ends up kind of falling off himself and he gains a little bit of body fat throughout the winter. And then the kind of the same oscillation occurs where he's only tracking his macros and taking himself really seriously when he has a very specific goal related to fat loss. And that's when I upgraded him from mentorship into fitness and nutrition coaching because I was like, let's work on this together. So we made a roadmap together. And I am still working through reframing it with him. He says certain things where I'm like, Pete, hold up, like slow your roll for a second. Like, let's not fall back into these patterns, but rather let's challenge them. And from that, even on my call today with him, he was like, how do you sell long-term coaching? And I said, well, you don't call it. I was like, please don't call it long-term coaching. I said, it's continued coaching. It's like
yeah.
continuing education for coaches. I said, it's simply continued coaching. It's showing clients. And I actually popped up our transformation of our client, Katie, that we posted today and was like, for example, take Katie. Like she came in as a returning client. She had seen results with us. She didn't come back with us because she had lost all of her progress, but she was navigating a new season of life, being postpartum. And I, in this post was showing him how across multiple deficits it took for her to get from point A to point B. And it was over obviously a span of time where she had different goals and such. But the reality is by me making a post like that, by us making a post like that, it postures and shows quote unquote long-term coaching when really it's just continued coaching with periodization and progressions that should be built into everyone's health and fitness journey. And that's just the big gap that I see, not just in Pete, obviously, but in a lot of coaches, is that they struggle to help the client past the point that they've even helped themselves or gotten themselves. And so Pete's obviously great at transformative coaching around fat loss, but he really loses authority when it comes to maintenance and literally has no idea how to even talk about it. So by doing it himself, we're now opening the door and the opportunity for him to actually better coach individuals through maintenance, talk about it, build authority around it. And now he's obviously going to hopefully have more lifetime value out of his clients. And they'll stay with him past just a 90-day to 6-month, transformation that they're getting.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, it's like to that point, reverse dieting got really hot. What was it, like 5 years ago, like 6 years ago ish, when everyone started talking about the reverse diet and making it seem like this big sexy thing. And it is. Like, I will say, like, reverse dieting is awesome. I think it's such an important thing. It's a premise that people are eating more food, which is great. However, I think a lot of people hype up a reverse diet and then they don't talk about the maintenance. It's like, oh, I reversed my client up. We stayed there for a couple weeks and then we started to cut again. And I'm like, what? No, because the reverse diet is still a deficit. If you are reverse dieting somebody up, you understand that the destination you are trying to achieve is their maintenance calories, meaning that if you are continuing to push food higher and higher and higher to work up to maintenance, they are eating below maintenance until they finish the reverse diet and get to maintenance, which means that they are still in a deficit throughout the whole reverse diet. So when people are like, hey, this person's eating more and losing weight in the reverse diet, well, of course they are. They have more energy, but they're still in a deficit. A reverse diet is still a deficit. And so I think a lot of times when, coaches are doing that, they think automatically, okay, we started the reverse, which meant the cut ended, which means now the start of the reverse diet is the start of their maintenance phase. It's like, no, Deacon doesn't think so either. But I think that's just a really important thing to keep in mind. And I that's why I always like to ask coaches. It's like, when was the last time that you did a reverse diet and actually stayed at maintenance? Because I know to your point with Pete, he was the person who was constantly dieting. Then he would get really great results. And then he would come off his diet and he would just eat whatever. And so that's where, making sure that you have done that as a coach comes into play. You understand the importance of maintenance, but it's not just that, which we can obviously continue the maintenance phase. Actually, when you were talking, I was thinking about just all the different things. We all have our own specialties within coaching. And one thing that I never feel confident in is when a coach comes in and they're like really into CrossFit, or really into Olympic lifting. Like, that's not something that I've ever really extensively gotten into myself. And so I have a harder time programming for it. Can I casually do it sometimes? Absolutely. Some Olympic lifts I feel really good about programming, and there's others I'm not as familiar with. I don't deal with that as much with clients. I've more focused on powerlifting and more endurance activities like running and cycling and those kinds of things. And so I think when you haven't done it yourself, even though you don't have to do everything your clients do, but when you've actually lived the experience, you understand what that is like in the client's shoes. And I think there's that aspect of it that when it comes to coaching that you just need to have under your belt.
Yeah, I think lifestyle is important. I think of all the points of resistance and friction that, our clients have, that we have to hold up a mirror and be like, well, how did we navigate this self, or have I felt this friction as well, beyond just maintenance. And the simplicity of actually reverse dieting and being at maintenance is like, have you tracked at maintenance for a prolonged period of time? Have you followed through on the protocols that you're trying to get a client to do when it comes to a vacation or an event? Like, have you gone on a vacation and actually stuck to a certain standard yourself, or are you just telling everyone else to do it? I think when it comes to modifying your training plans and adjusting that based on different circumstances that come up, I think it's how are you helping your clients navigate a busy season, and do you hold yourself to that? And it's not saying you have to be perfect. It's simply an act of embodiment. And it's also then what I find coaches get stuck in is this like resentment towards their clients. They get angry towards their clients and frustrated. And they say, oh, well, they're not doing it and they don't care and they're not being coachable and they're not this, and this. And listen, we can all hold our frustrations in so many different areas about different stuff that comes up. But at the end of the day, we also have to look at ourselves and be like, okay, are we actually just holding resentment because like we also don't know how to freaking coach them through this? Like, that's just what it is. For me, for example, I do coach a lot of moms. Like, I have a lot of experience coaching moms. I'm not a mom myself, and I try not to hold frustration towards any mom clients of mine when they're busy with their kids, because I recognize that busyness is something that does change when you become a mom. It is a different wheelhouse. On the flip side, I've seen coaches get frustrated at their postpartum or first time moms, or they're just busy moms with multiple kids. Like coaches get frustrated at their clients and they're like, well, they're not busy. Like they still have this. And I'm like, you actually have no idea. Like you don't know. And I think we have to hold a level of empathy and respect towards clients and understanding and just being willing as coaches to navigate. Now, obviously, it's something where eventually, hopefully, I get to experience that. But there's just a sense of like meeting someone where they're at and making some adjustments where you need to and still holding a standard, but asking yourself, is this something that I would follow? Is this something that I would be receptive to as well? So I think there's just a lot of different scenarios beyond just maintenance, obviously, that comes up. It's also falling through on a training plan. Like, are you just getting handed a training plan? I mean, hell, this has happened with my clients before where it's like I hand them a training plan, they don't do it, they go rogue, they do their own thing. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And then they come to me and complain about their clients who are doing the same. And a lot of times it's because coaches do struggle to like release control. I struggled with this at first and now I freaking love it. I love offloading my programming where I just don't have to think about it. I just clock into the gym and I clock out and it's wonderful. I think there's just a lot of moments where it's funny to see somebody else's behavior as a coach, but then their complaints when it comes to their clients and kind of recognizing that in some ways, sometimes we are our own worst clients. Like sometimes we are very much a reflection of that, but we don't even notice it because like we try to separate us from our clients, obviously. So it just creates this like oscillation bubble of emotions and things that come up, but all of which can be worked on to be better coaches.
Yeah, like you said, like you don't have to experience it to understand it. And I think that does come very much so back to, and I've learned that too. I'm like, oh my God, what kind of coach was I before I was a mom to moms? Because it's a lot. And I truly I'm concerned for some coaches that are coaching moms and like not having that level of understanding. And we have, I remember we got this question from a client of, she had a client who was doing meal prep service and because she was really busy. And I remember her being like, how do I encourage her to just start cooking at home? And I'm like, well, why would she need to cook at home if she's getting meal prep service? Well, because it's not as accurate. And I'm like, at some point, the distinction between macros that are on the thing and what she's actually eating are going to be so minuscule that I'd rather have someone eating a meal prep service than going to McDonald's drive-through and getting a burger and fries for lunch, right? And so I think it's like, while you maybe don't understand why somebody is where they're at, it's using some, in a way, common knowledge to be like, common sense to be like, okay, what would we rather have here, right? And looking at almost the lesser of two evils, if you will. And I think, to your point, if you're not living it, it's like you're going to understand it through the lens of someone else's life and having almost just that like, I guess it is just common sense of like, hey, like what is this person actually going through? Because we won't always live it as clients, or if you have a client whose goals change in the middle of you working with them, having the, I guess why can't I think of words today? It's just not clocking. Anyways, it's a lot easier to just chat about it when it comes to like maintenance because it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. But I think that it really just does boil down to when you're coaching, if you haven't experienced something, at least being able to approach it from like a human standpoint and meeting your clients where they're at and understanding their why behind things. I think that's where the motivational interviewing piece comes into it, where it's like, ask them why. Actually, our mentor said that to me this weekend. I was like, hey, our coaching staff, they aren't doing this one thing, and I noticed they aren't doing it. She's like, have you ever just asked them why? And I was like, interesting, because I could do that to my clients all day, ask them the why behind things, but I actually haven't. I haven't asked them why they haven't done this. And so it sometimes can be as simple as just understanding where your client is coming from if it's something where you haven't experienced it yourself, or maybe you aren't going to experience it at all, but you're still apt to help them change. Kind of like a big weight loss goal. Like I've never experienced a huge weight loss journey personally. And that's not even like, yeah, look at me. It's me saying like, that's genuinely something I don't understand. I have not been able to live that, but it doesn't mean I can't help people do that. It doesn't mean that I haven't helped clients lose 60 pounds, 70 pounds, because I have done that. But it just means that I've had to have more of like an empathy towards that, and being able to, understand where they're at and like putting myself in their shoes a little bit better than what I would do normally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and this leads me into the thought of, a lot of times people have like their pillars of their coaching or their client journey and their timelines. And, they're like, for us, we have like our base phase, and we have ascend and we have summit and we have horizon. We have all these phases that exist. And sometimes I think that coaches get a little too rigid in their coaching around certain journeys and timelines and phases and pillars and mechanisms and whatever you want to call it, to where they really struggle to take one client who's like the busy mom and take the other one who's maybe, a 25-year-old out of grad school, getting a job, living the single life, has a apartment by themselves, no dog, all the free time in the world type of vibes. And you take a comparison, and sometimes coaches just struggle to coach two different people and try to actually hold two different people with very different circumstances to the same timeline, the same policy, the same everything. And that's where it's like, okay for you not to maybe have experienced as a coach, again, the exact life of these people that you are coaching, but building up the applicable skill sets that you got to learn through, like for me, for example, it was definitely through being coached myself that taught me how to have certain delivery and also how somebody else modifies based on things in my life. And then I've gotten to really take that skill set and work on it within my clientele, because everybody is so different as far as who I'm working with. When I was doing my check-ins yesterday, I was like flipping switches. I was like, okay, I'm going from my client who's single to my client who's a mom to my client who's a male to my client who's this. Like I'm switching all over the place, but it's just based on obviously the skill set that I've learned over time. A lot of that came from my own lived experience doing the thing myself, and then understanding the different strategies that exist that aren't necessarily going to apply to every single person, but that I can take my mom of two who's really busy and say, hey, let's throw in this strategy and not follow this rigidity of like a pillar or a phase. Like it just feels cookie cutter at that point. I love phases. I think they organize the like client experience really well, but I think we get a little too married to exactly what we're transforming the person in that, when sometimes they're not ready for that entire transformation quite yet. And then again, we get frustrated, we compare client to client. It's like, it's not like we shouldn't be comparing client to client right now. Now what I will say is that there are some clients who are just non-complacent, like they are just non-adherent. They are just not doing the thing. That's not to say that you can't get frustrated with clients, because it will happen. I think there are a lot of cases where you can do everything under the sun. If somebody does not want the help, you can't force them to do it. Like if a client comes to me and they're like, I want to run a half marathon, cool, I can put the whole plan together for you to run a half marathon. The one thing I can't do is run for you. The one thing I can't do is show up on race day for you. You have to have a level of discipline and execution to happen as the client. So I think it's always this, yeah, there's always going to be this other side of the coin, but I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to, like you said, empathy, skill set, strategy, removing rigidity from our coaching, and just coaching humans at the end of the day. And if we struggle with what we're coaching on, holding up a mirror and saying, well, where can I be better as a coach? Where can I learn more as a coach? And with every coach I've invested in, it's like I've learned something. Like I've picked up something new as far as how they maybe do a system, how they maybe coach, maybe how they put in a new movement that I haven't done in a long time. I love when a coach programs something for me and I'm like, wow, I forgot about this exercise. Like that was kind of fun to do.
Yeah.
And it just like gets my creativity going again as well. So that was a big word vomit, just to say that essentially remove your rigidity from your programming, because everyone is so different. And if you struggle with that and you've only known one way, and maybe that one way was, oh, well, I got my own transformation 5 years ago. A lot's evolved over the last 5 years. And I think you have to stay, in order to stay relevant in the coaching industry, you have to be coached by coaches who also stay relevant in the industry.
Yeah, exactly. You only know what you know, right? You only know what you've experienced. And so, like you said, you've learned a little bit from every single coach. You learn new ways to respond to things that are happening. And I know for a fact there's so many coaches out there who are like their clients are an exact reflection of how they're living their lives. They struggle on the weekends. They are going out and doing things. They're social and they're not staying, on track. But then they're in the same breath complaining about clients doing the same exact thing. And it's like, hey, hold up a mirror to yourself, like look at exactly what you're doing, and now you learn how your coach can respond to that. And with that, also just learning how to coach different people. I think it is really important to have a niche, but at some point you are going to come across a client that you are going to sign that is new for you, that has not experienced anything that you've ever experienced as a coach yourself. And that's where I will say, shameless plug, Beyond the Cert comes in, because we have different stages that we teach on. We say teach on stage 1, 2, and 3 clients, and teaching you how to actually coach those clients. Like when they come into you, here's their starting point. Typically, here is kind of the avatar person. And this is what they're struggling with. These are different strategies for starting them out, for their nutrition, for their training, for their lifestyle habits. Here's certain ways to coach them and different strategies on that side of things. And that's where, Beyond the Cert can be extremely helpful, and not just teaching you the information, because sure, a textbook is great, but it's not actually teaching you the human side of things. And the same thing goes for ChatGPT. I actually did a post on this like probably a couple months ago at this point, but I had asked Chat a question, and actually was more pertaining to me and my breast milk supply, and they gave me a really good answer. And I was like, wow, Chat, thanks. You're going to take my job one day. And Chat was like, no, because at the end of the day, you're still a human. You have the human response. I'm a robot that's just taking data. And there's a difference between data and emotion, and coaching blends both, unfortunately. Like, sure, we can try to take all the emotions out of coaching that we can, but it is a very hyper emotional thing. Like, you are dealing with people's lives. You're dealing with traumas that are happening in their life, even if you don't want to. You're dealing with their marriage, their kids, their job. You're dealing with all of these things. And if you haven't experienced those yourself, because that's where you're at in life, that's okay. But it doesn't mean that you can't learn to understand those things and learn to have a response to it. In dealing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's just a lot of different elements that can make you be an embodied coach. And at the end of the day, it's like education first. Like, I do think education is important and knowledge, but then the lived experience is the second part of it. And it's just really leaning into where you think your gap is. And, something that we talked about with our mentor actually was how like complacency is actually a very dangerous place as coaches. And her saying that actually was like, damn, yeah, it is. Like, it's actually a very dangerous place when you get to a point as a coach where you think like, you know enough. You're like, oh, I know enough. I have my transformation. I've gotten myself this far. And it created a whole conversation of like, but why only get yourself that far? Like, why not go farther? Why not like continue? Why allow complacency to make you comfortable? Because then our business or our client results, our delivery also becomes the ceiling. Like, as far as we've taken ourselves is as far as we can take other people. So it all just kind of like creates the same conversation. At the end of the day, I think one of the best and most selfless things you can do as a coach is actually get a coach yourself and just say, like, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for my clients. I'm doing this for the integrity of my business. I'm doing this for my future self, who's probably going to get burnt out. Like, I think you also have to be proactive when it comes to your own coaching. And when you are scaling a business and when you are navigating a lot of client scenarios and a lot of emotions, like you said, and you're taking on a lot of that, you will start to slack in some area. And having a coach myself has helped me a ton to just like still check a box. Like, even this week with me traveling, had I not actually had someone make a program for me, I probably would have slacked off a little bit more. But I was like, you know what? No, I'm getting my lifts Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week. I'm hitting them. I'm prioritizing them. They're in front of me. I could go in on autopilot, come out the same way I would have explained to a coach, my own clients, to go do it themselves, to go get in their workouts and prioritize that before you're traveling. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'll never forget something that Frankie said to me, because we've been working together for almost 3 years now, since 2023, August 23. she was like, I'm just thankful I found you because the thing is, like, I'm not paying myself to program for myself.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, it doesn't all come down to finances or whatever that is. But like, you programming for yourself as a coach is keeping you in the same place because you are now just doing what you know and not being pushed out of your comfort zone to do new things and try new things. I think that was one of the most like crazy things a client has said. It's like, yeah, I'm not paying myself to. Why would I program for myself? I'm not paying myself. I'm not my own client. And I think it is important if you're your own client. It's kind of like the kid that was always coached by their parents in high school, like throughout high school. Uh, like your parent isn't going to get you out of your comfort zone. It's like it at some point you have to get out of that zone of like the comfort of your own programming, the comfort of pushing yourself, and allow somebody to do that for you. So that's why we have ACA. That's why we created it. Um, so yeah, it's our program for our coaches. You get mentorship, but you also get fitness and nutrition coaching on top of it. So you're getting beyond the cert, like I mentioned, but you're also getting the fitness and nutrition coaching to push you out of your comfort zone, to hold you at maintenance maybe longer than you need to program in the exercises that you actually really freaking hate, but you have to do anyways for growth. And to do all the things that you aren't doing yourself because why push yourself out of your comfort zone when you could just do the things you know?
Heck yeah.
So yeah, if you're ready to get out of your comfort zone, if you're ready to grow as a coach, those things are in the application. The application is in the link show notes below. This is a quick and snappy one, but hopefully it kind of helped put things into perception for you, so that you can start growing more.
Amen.
What a way to end it. What a banger of an ending. Awful ending. But anyways, application is down below if you are interested in exploring ACA. And also I'll include like our website so you have all the information on that as well. But thanks for giving this a listen, guys. And we'll see you in the next one.
See you, friends.
Bye.